top of the mountain. Yeah, we've heard our way up to the top of the mountain. Yeah, we never coming down from the top of the mountain.
What's yours?
I'm going to come through that screen, grip you around the neck, and tell you to hit that subscribe button.
Hey guys, welcome back to another video. I hope everybody is well. Now today, something a little bit different. We're going to be talking about gene doping with our head professor from Mudo, Chris. Chris, are you there, buddy?
I am. Good to see you.
And you, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. I'm good. You? Doing all right?
Yeah, good, thank you. So gene doping, now I've heard of this in the past, bits and babs about it, but I got no clue what's entailed in gene doping. Is it even a real thing? Is it a possible thing to do?
Yeah, I mean, gene doping is certainly possible, I guess. At the moment, it's banned from, Olympic committees and stuff. But it's an interesting topic to talk about, because it's going to be the next big thing maybe in sports performance and human enhancement, I guess.
I think you're a good guy to have on my team then. So, I mean, this fight I've got coming up, it's definitely not the Olympics. So I think if there's a bit of gene doping to be done, I think we should do it. So tell me, first off, just for like my ignorance and probably 99% of the ignorance out there, the viewers, what is gene doping?
In general, gene doping is targeting people's gene variants within their DNA and altering them so they have gifts will come out of them. And we'll go through in this video some of the gifts that you have and Rooney has, which is an Olympic athlete or a GB athlete currently. And we're going to go through what variants you both have and how they may be copied into other individuals and give them the same advantages and the ethical problems which obviously come from doing so.
Right, okay. So Rooney, are you on the line?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, buddy, how are you doing?
All good, mate. All good.
Yeah, good. So you're a GB weightlifter and you got some good stats?
Yeah, so I'm in the 67 weight category. My best snatch is 117 and my best clean jerk is 145. So managed to compete internationally, Europeans and World Championships.
Nice. So sounds like you've got some good genes then for under 67 kilo lifter. Yeah. You're snatching 140 above your head, was that?
So clean and jerking 145, yeah.
Right, so that's coming up to double body weight above your head. That's impressive. So
yeah.
Right, Chris, so what have me and Rooney got in common then?
Right, so I'm actually going to share my screen with you and you'll see a quick document pop up. Okay, so if we look at the top, it says common targets. Now these are the targets that most people look into to try and alter an individual to give them gifts. These have been reported in research, for example. Now, some of the target variants that you guys already have. So if we start with Eddie, now you have ACTN3, which is one everybody looks at, but you actually have an endurance version, an endurance variant of that gene, and not the power variant, which would be expected in someone, who's one world's strongest man. You have the MSTN gene, which we spoke about before, but this controls myostatin. So you have lower levels of myostatin in your muscles, which allows for more growth of muscles, more hypertrophy. And you have an IGF-2 variant, which controls insulin growth factor 2, which is more important as a child, but actually it's linked to superior strength as an adult, the variant that you have. And NOS3, which is a gene which helps control nitric oxide production. And you actually produce more nitric oxide, which is obviously really beneficial to your ability to train for longer and your ability to lift weights as well, just getting that oxygen through your body. So those variants would be variants that people would look to copy in individuals without them. And that's how gene doping will come about, because they'll see Eddie Hall, they'll see the variants you have, and they'll say, oh, I fancy a bit of MSTN, or I fancy a bit of NOS3 variant in my body. On Rooney's side, which is really interesting as you're both power athletes, you both have that ACTN3 endurance variant. And for Rooney, you've got an AMPD1 variant, which is linked to not having AMPD1 deficiency at all, which is beneficial for fatigue. AGT, which is associated with power output, and TRHR, which is associated with thyroid and metabolism and it's also linked to a better lean body mass, which is obviously really beneficial in a weight categorized sport like GB weightlifting, Olympic weightlifting.
Yeah.
So as you can see, you actually have different variants, but you both have GIFs on both sides. But what's really interesting is the ACTN3 variant, which has actually come back stamina or endurance. As a power athlete, both of you, if you weren't, if you were younger, maybe 10 years old, a gene doper might say, actually, you don't want that ACTN3 variant that you have. We could change it into the power variant. And that's the question actually I'll put to you, Eddie, first. If someone did say that to you, knowing that you wanted to be the world's strongest man at 10, would you have changed it?
That's a good question. I think, geez. Wow, that's a good question. I mean, the thing is, obviously, I've got the power from the MSTN and the IGF2 and the NOS3. I think that the endurance one is a very important aspect in terms of my body, in terms of, you know, actually getting the training. You know, as you say, I trained for a very, very long time. So I think having the ACTN3 as an endurance is actually a big deal to become the world's strongest man, because you know, you have to be able to train for 3, 4, 5 hours every single day. And, you know, during the events at World's Strongest Man, they're quite long-winded. You know, World's Strongest Man can sometimes go on for 2 weeks. You could do an event every day for 2 weeks. So I think that endurance one probably, I mean, sitting here now, I would say keep it. But if you would ask me as a 10-year-old kid, would I swap that endurance for power? I'd probably say yes, I would.
You would, yeah. Okay, it's interesting though, isn't it? It's because we know that may have actually helped you win the world's strongest man. You know, having that.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's not always scientifically accurate, you know, or scientifically like it works in a lab maybe, but it may not work in practical terms. So it's interesting. So Rooney, the same sort of question to you, I guess. Have you both had that in the zone? Would you have swapped it?
I feel like it must help me during training and especially in the competition warm-ups as well. Things are always changing and you always need that extra bit of, I can say, energy almost, that endurance, even in the warm-up. But there does seem to be other genes that are compensating for power, I'm guessing. So if it didn't help, I'd like to know the statistics. If it did help, then maybe, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Just don't know,
I mean,
do you?
I think the thing that comes out of most of this type of gene doping in stuff is that nobody's born with all the gifts. You know, athletes are not often born with some gifts and don't have others. So just to highlight that point, Moodoo test a lot of athletes, and this graph here shows the average test percentage for muscle power and muscle stamina. Now, what we do is we put all the variants together and give them an end score. So muscle power is scored out of 30, and muscle stamina again is scored out of 30. 30 out of 30 would be having all the gifts. So in theory, it's possible, but we've never seen anybody come near that. As you can see on the graph, the score of 11 to 15 out of 30 is the average, with, you know, just over 45% of the population scoring within that. Now, for Eddie, your muscle power is a 19 out of 30, so it falls here in the top, you know, 25% of people, and that's the same for Rooney with a score of 20 out of 30. So you're both pretty much the same when it comes to the muscle power gift. Muscle stamina, Eddie, you scored 21 out of 30, which puts you here, which is actually, you know, you're probably looking at top 10, probably it's a bit below top 6% maybe. Top 6% of the population that we've tested. And after that point, you don't really see many people getting 26 plus is less than 1%. So a score of 21 would be really high. Now, just looking at this graph, you could imagine that an athlete who may score on a genetic test around here, how tempting it would be to do some form of gene doping to actually move their marker further towards this side of the table where athletes are normally located. So it's interesting to hear your guys' thoughts, as you obviously are athletes. So what is your interpretation of being able to do this? I guess gene dope someone who wasn't born to be an athlete but could get the gene variants which were associated with being an athlete.
Well, I mean, geez, I mean, as you say, that question, if I was a 10-year-old kid and you showed me this graph, for both the power and the stamina, I'd want to be off the charts. I want to be on that 26 plus. But as you say, that's super, super rare, potentially even not even seen in our lifetime, you know, but, you know, obviously the human race is still evolving. But what surprised me more is that my power, my muscle power is less than Rooney's. Which means yeah, which means I'm not the most genetically gifted sort of power position, power body on the planet, really. But what has surprised me is muscle, stamina, endurance is, as you say, is in that top 10 to 6% of the population, which makes sense because, you know, I was a national champion swimmer in my youth. You know, I won 50 meters and I won the 1500 meters, gold medal at the nationals, and I was on the GB squad. So, you know, I've definitely proved both of those variants true in both aspects. Power for winning the world's strongest man, and the stamina endurance for winning the gold medals at the national championships when I was, you know, 10 to 13 years of age.
Yeah. And you can certainly see when it comes to muscle stamina, even in the world's strongest man, when you have events where you're knocking out 15 plus reps of, you know, a heavy weight and stuff, you know, muscle power in this is normally measured in one-off events, such as like a vertical jump test or a one-off deadlift. I'm obviously got the 500 kilos on deadlift, so
Yeah,
there as well. But the muscle stamina, you know, you show that all the time with on your other videos where you're doing shoulder presses for reps of like a ridiculous weight, and other people can't match you at all.
yeah.
But yeah, I think certainly that muscle stamina does shine through on you, and I think it has been really important actually for you.
I would say so. I would say that the yes, you're right. You know, the one rep maxes, of course, I've always won those. But in terms of like standing in one spot and doing reps like squats, deadlift for reps, Viking press for reps, I've always won them. You know, any endurance sort of strength event, I've always won that as well.
Yeah, so it is obviously interesting, like you're saying, if you're 10 and someone could say to you, we're going to put you off the end of the scale. But I suppose the ethical issue is, should that be done? You wouldn't even be the same person because you will change your DNA.
I don't care. I want it done. Let's set it up, Chris. Let's send me the files over. I'll bang them in. Let's do it.
And I guess the other big issue is that the people with the biggest pockets will be able to get the best athletes.
Yeah, that's true. You know, I mean, you hear all these stories. I mean, Russia's got a bit of a reputation, hasn't it, for pulling all strings and getting things done. So, or China especially, you know. So there's no doubt in my mind, you know, we're talking about gene doping here. There's no doubt in my mind that at some point in the future, this is definitely going to be a realistic factor when it comes to the Olympics and sports in general. So, but I want it to happen now, let's be honest.
What do you think, Rooney, being in the GB squad? Obviously this is banned in the sports that you'll be competing in. What's your feeling on gene doping?
It's going to be a never-ending battle. They're already still battling the old drugs from the 80s, you know. I always think you should use whatever genes you have to your advantage. Like Eddie was saying, he's got the stamina endurance. He did use it to his advantage, you know, compared to others, and he did beat the other people that could only do the one rep max. It will be a never-ending battle, and I think they will struggle to test for it personally. Yeah.
It's a bit like the Formula One, isn't it? It's like Mercedes versus BMW versus Volkswagen, whatever else. But end of the day, whoever puts the most money into the research and getting that perfect race car is usually the one that comes out on top. And I suppose Olympic Games and strength sports and any athletics really, boxing, fighting, anything. Whoever's got the most money is more than likely in the future going to be the ones coming out on top. So it's quite, I mean, it's interesting as hell, but I think this eventually will be, you know, it's like the iPhones now. You know, when they came out 10 years ago, they were dead expensive. Now you can get an iPhone 3, 4, 5 for a couple £100. And I think that's going to be the same thing with the gene doping in the future. You know, it'll come out. you'll only get this sort of super rich sort of affording it, and then before you know it, 10 years down the line, it's going to be a sort of buy a package off Amazon where you can do your own genes sort of thing, you know, for a couple £100. So I think it is definitely something that will happen in the future. Definitely.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that I can do this right now, or anyone doing this, you know, to a point where you can say you have an ACTN3 variant that you don't want, we can get rid of it and put a new variant in. You know, this is the kind of treatments that will be used to cure disease in the future, but that same science will be applied to enhancing people as well. And it's the same sort of thing for steroids and other drugs, is that, you know, these things may start off in the medicine to try and treat people, but they can easily be used to enhance people as well. So it's not going to stop because they need it for treatments. It's just whether or not it's going to be utilized in sports. And it's going to be very hard to test for.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because it's built into your DNA, isn't it? So it's how can you prove it's not the DNA?
Yeah.
Is it based off tissue then? Would you be testing tissue? Because at the moment they're only doing blood and urine tests.
I'm not sure how they would try and figure it out. I'm guessing they would have to figure it out as like an actual investigation into what that person's been doing, rather than a fact of actually doing a physical test on somebody to work it out, unless they had their genome already mapped and then they looked at it again.
Yeah, so like in this date it was this gene, and then a year later he's got different genes.
Yeah. Basically.
Understand that.
And like I say, this is hypothetical stuff at the moment. However, that's basically what the aim, that the end goal might be in the future, would be to do this in people who are just wanting to improve themselves. You know, I want to be able to have less myostatin in my body so I can have more muscles. You know, that's going to be easily used by bodybuilders to increase their muscle size.
Here's a question for you, Chris. You're a brainy guy. If you're given a few million quid in a laboratory to make this happen, could you make it happen?
I guess so, but I might have a James Bond coming after me or something in a few years.
Right, well, we'll say no more. We'll talk off camera.
But yeah, I mean, it's obviously really exciting stuff, and it's interesting to know that I suppose it's possible. And I think at the moment the possibilities are going to come in for babies before they're born, to actually change it before, so they're actually born an athlete. And I think that's probably where it's heading first, before you get to the point where you're 30 years old and now suddenly you want to have all the gifted gene variants. That's a lot harder than changing an unborn child into something that you want. So yeah, I mean, there is another aspect to gene doping that we haven't discussed, and that's called epigenetics. And Eddie, I know you've had an epigenetic test. Now, this isn't gene doping to the extent that we were talking about beforehand, where you would put a substance in the body to try and alter someone's DNA. This is some stuff that you can do yourself in training and lifestyle, diet, what you do, which alters the epigenome, which affects gene expression. So, as you know, genes express in the body and they cause different changes, right? So the MSTN variant that you have causes less myostatin in the body, which allows you to have more muscle mass. Now, certain epigenetic changes can actually methylate over a gene and stop that gene from expressing, which is in essence the same as a mutation. Now, to cause those epigenetic changes, all you have to do is have some sort of lifestyle change. And that might be a case of training differently. It might be a case of taking something dietary in, and these will have a change on the epigenetics. So for me, that's like a sort of clean way of gene doping, because that is just how you train, how you eat, changing your gene expression.
So you're saying that there's certain diets that you could go on to influence the power gene, the endurance gene, and there's certain exercises you could do to the body to, again, influence it and try and, would you say, slightly curve that path of your natural genes and take it a different direction?
Yeah, possibly, yeah. And that's how epigenetics would work. And now
so your DNA adapts to how you eat and live your lifestyle.
In essence, yeah, your epigenetics will change, your DNA methylation will change, thanks to your lifestyle that you live.
Right. Wow.
So that's one way, I guess, of gene doping as such, training differently you're training smarter, you're eating better. And these are ways that people will use to improve their sport, obviously, because you improve as you go along, but it actually changes their DNA methylation as well. And at the moment, it's not targeted enough to say it's going to change ACTN3 expression or whatever, or MSTN's expression. But there are certain things which have influence. One of them will be creatine monohydrate, which has shown influence on the MSTN gene. This is like really early on, and it affects the levels of myostatin in the body. So that's one theory of how creatine may actually aid people, not just from the energy processes, but actually from a muscle size process as well.
So are you saying people that have taken creatine from an early age can have an MSTN gene variant or mutation almost?
It won't change the MSTN variant that they have. They'll be born with that. However, it may alter the way that gene expresses. So if it's expressing normally, as it would be for the majority of people, you would have the normal levels of myostatin. However, with creatine supplementation, it's been shown that the myostatin levels drop in the body, and that may be due to an epigenetic change, not changing the actual gene variant you have, but just changing the way that gene starts working, basically.
Got you, understand that.
Yeah, so that's another way. And obviously that would be a sort of clean way, I guess, of gene doping, because you could then have different dietary plans and everybody could do it. You know, anybody could do it. It wouldn't be the highest bidder, I guess, who gets it. So yeah, I mean, what do you guys think about that, Rooney? Any thoughts about that?
Is that defined as gene therapy then? Is that like you sort
of... No, gene therapy is gene doping, but gene therapy would be the medical use of it.
I think we're already sort of, as you're saying, you're trying to express the genes a bit more, even from your training and from your diet. Anyway, so that's I agree with that. That's not an issue. I don't think that's not an ethical issue at all.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the idea would be is that, yeah, like you say, everyone's training hard or they're eating right, but it will be to give information about what the kind of diet you're doing, what kind of exercise you're doing is affecting which genes. And that would be like the next level of that. So you could be like, I need to affect this, and this gene, so I can get the most out of my body. What kind of diet I need to be in? What kind of exercise do I need to do? It might be a case of just changing your training, so you're doing more intense intervals, for example, or having more rest periods. And all these little changes may actually affect a certain gene expression. And that would be the next level of epigenetic sports enhancements.
Right. You're still putting the work in, though. I think that's the main difference. You see, regardless, you'll be changing your training for that gene and your lifestyle, but you're still putting the work in. You're not actually taking anything externally. I think that's the difference, really, between the both.
And Eddie, you think that's? I mean, I think you're up for making monsters, aren't you? Really, so.
You know what I mean? I'm of the opinion, if you can, well, put it this way, right? You're going to walk around like Clark Kent all day, right? But if someone could give you a magic pill to make you Superman permanently, are you going to take it? That's the question. That's a question for you, Rooney.
As an athlete that gets tested, no.
But this is the thing, if they can't test for gene doping, what I'm saying to you, mate, if somewhere down the future we've got this capability, this technology where we can completely change your genes to turn you into Superman, if everyone's going to be doing it, would you do it or wouldn't you do it?
You'd have to do it to stay competitive.
There you go.
That's the only way. As athletes, you want to be as competitive as possible. So.
I'm the same, it's and as I'm of that opinion as well. Why would you want to walk around like Clark Kent all day when you could be Superman? That's the end result for me. I want to be Superman all day long.
Jeez.
I think that's the issue, actually, isn't it? Is that if you weren't doing it, you'll be thinking, is the next guy doing it?
Yeah, and of course they would, because that's competition for you. It's rife in every single sport on the planet. Every single sport, everyone's after that extra 0.5%, that little advantage. So yeah, it will definitely go on, if not already. We do not know.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the issue, isn't it? We don't know.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be it'd be interesting to see, you know, if it did come to light, what kind of world record we could get from altering. You know, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know what level of potential there is for a perfect.
I heard a while back. I mean, this might be absolute BS, but I heard they found a way to sort of interlink silverback genes into humans and sort of like hormones almost, and make humans like the same strength and sort of size as silverbacks. Have you heard of that?
No, you may have better informants than me.
Oh, there we go.
But I guess that is a sort of a science fiction way of looking at the potential of gene doping. If you could change a variant, could you not slice in different animals' variants to cause changes in the body as well? I mean, they tried to make woolly mammoth come back by implanting the DNA of it into an elephant, which would then have a woolly mammoth baby. So,
Right, did it work?
I'm not sure. I wasn't really following too deeply. Those are the kind of experiments that you know, go on, I guess.
Yeah. Of course.
Do you, Chris? Do you think that it's already happening, this gene doping, in countries that aren't regulating medicine or anything?
It's certainly in development. Whether or not it's happening successfully is a different matter. You know, it's certainly in development, and I do think that unborn children will be the first targets, and it'll be nearly impossible to, unless you could follow up on investigate what actually happened. It'd be nearly impossible to know if that child was born naturally or whether they were, you know, altered or modified to be an athlete.
Sounds exciting. Right then, well, thank you, Rooney, and thank you, Chris. That was actually very, very insightful. I've heard about gene doping in the past, but how it all works, and I think me and Chris are going to be having talks after this, maybe, and yeah. Anyway, is there any questions from you guys? Hit me up in the comments. But otherwise, head to mudo.com, grab yourself a DNA kit, the epigenetics test as well. So as Chris touched on there, we've done some testing with myself, and we've discovered all these variants that we talked about, variants and advantages that we've talked about, that I've got, that Rooney's got, that have given me the right tools in life to go on and do and be as successful as I am in the strength world and the swimming world back in the day as well. So, you know what, guys, and I say this every time I talk about investing in yourself. You know, you'll go out and buy a new car and spend money on a night out. Why not spend a little bit of cash on your health and find out what's actually going on inside your body, and how's everything ticking? You know, what's put you all together? What sports are you good at? What sports are you bad at? What are you most genetically gifted for, and what you're most genetically gifted against? So, yeah. Anyway, hit me up in the comments. Thank you, Rooney. Thank you, Chris. Please like the video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time. Big love, the beast. Take care.